And that helped me sleep better at night, because, man, it drove me nuts. We all looked at Kurt when he was singing. I was a child when he was still around, but still a big fan of his. But we all looked at that guy we knew. He was a special individual, his eyes, you know? But anyway, Dave Grohl of the quote-unquote Foo Fighters is the name of the band. Let's touch on him first, who also seems to be an incredible individual, and somebody I'd very much like to meet someday. He writes a song called Everlong, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. And it always has been, but it was just this last year that I realized what he was talking about. And Everlong is a conversation between Dave and an alien. A telepathic conversation. And I'm going to read it to you, and I'd like another good explanation. No, I don't want another good explanation, because this is what it's about. I think Dave knows a lot about what's going on, and I have to imagine spend as much time with Kurt as he did. I don't want to say it rubbed off. I think Dave certainly has proved he's not riding on Kurt Cobain's coattails. I'd have to imagine it influenced him. And when I say these guys are special people, I didn't say they're not troubled. That's part of being a special person. Well, let me read you Dave's conversation between him and an alien, or angel. However you want to look at it, it's the same thing. Hello, Dave says. I've waited here for you, Everlong. Apparently he's been waiting for a while, huh? Tonight I've thrown myself in two, and out of the red, out of her head she sang. Out of her head she sang. Is it possible he's talking about a telepathic communication with an alien? Of course he is. Of course he is. It continues. And it sounds like Dave says to her, come down and waste away with me, down with me. Waste away with me. I mean, I think that's probably personal commentary on the state of the world right now. I agree. And this is a cool one. Because I had a similar conversation at one point with a female. I identify them as tall grays, but boy, they are just beautiful. And the faces are always a little blotted out. When I see pictures, sometimes it really brings things back. But they scared me one time. I think unintentionally, but I asked them to come, and they came down on the ground. I just wasn't quite expecting what I got. It was in a remote area, and I ran, cried, actually. I cried tears of joy because they showed themselves to me. I mean, it was, what an honor. He says, slow how you wanted it to be. I'm over my head, out of her head, she sang. And boy, that's word for word what she said to me one night after that, because I said, just come slow. And she said, look directly over your head, and it was slow. I don't want to say much more about it than that at this particular juncture, because this one isn't supposed to be too much about me. I'm just trying to show you how I can relate to this, because other people can too. We aren't alone, guys. It goes on to say, and I wonder, when I sing along with you, if everything could ever feel this real forever, if anything could ever be this good again. And when you have one of those experiences, maybe you could hear it in my voice when I flash back to it. It's a euphoria. You can't explain. There's just not words for the feeling, so I'm not going to try to do it, but those who've had it know what I'm talking about. He continues to say, the only thing I'll ever ask of you is gotta promise not to stop when I say when. I don't know what he means by that. That's probably between him and her. He goes on, and I'm going to skip a little bit. He's basically continuing to talk with her. And he says, and now, I know you've always been out of your head, out of my head, I sang. I know you've always been out of your head, out of my head, I sang. He's talking about telepathy. There's another, what I hope is a compelling argument. Bright UFO at 1 o'clock. Sorry. That one's pretty cool, though. Boy, that's bright. Oh. What a beautiful thing. How's everybody missing this? I'm looking around. There's a lot of people that should be seeing this, but nobody is. But me, I think it's insane. Boy, that's beautiful. Anyway. I lost track of where I was at, but I was just saying that was another compelling bit of evidence. I think I'm going to continue here because I have much more than I can possibly give you in this video. And I don't want it to go for 2 hours. It could go for 2 weeks. And I want to go back to Kurt Cobain real quick, and one of his favorite songs, All Apologies. And to me, I think it's pretty clear he's apologizing to everyone for being what he is, because it's not necessarily easy, and none of us really wanted it. It's just the life that we lead. But he's sort of a sarcastic son of a bitch, it seems like, and maybe a little bit negative sometimes, but we all have our own character traits, but it is kind of funny. What else should I be? All apologies, he says in the beginning. Sorry for what I am, essentially, is this whole song. But the most interesting line in this song to me is he says, shortly after that, what else could I write? I don't have the right. What else could I write? I don't have the right, he says. He does not have the right to write about anything but this. What is he talking about there? What's he mean by that? His stuff is tough to break down and truly genius, I believe. Masterpieces. I have a heck of a hard time getting to the root of what Cobain was trying to tell us a lot of times. That's how he was so brilliant. But a good song is The Man Who Sold the World, which I truly believe is him singing a song about meeting, I think, who he perceives to be Jesus Christ. I don't know for sure. A lot of times they'll put that face on it because we all know that individual, certainly in the Western world, and revere that individual, and maybe he did too. Maybe it was Jesus himself. I don't know. I believe there's certainly a little bit of validity to the Da Vinci Code story. I think that's quite obvious, and Second Coming, to me, I think is the large group of hybrids that's here right now. I think Jesus was a hybrid, pretty obviously. What else was he? A man's body, but the blood of God. Well, God himself, we have a heck of a hard time getting to who that actually is. But the higher beings and the angels, biblically, apparently there's some problems with that. But I think it lines up pretty good, guys. I really do, if you try to be impartial to it. And I've read some interesting verses in the Bible that I haven't read through the whole thing, like I said. Sure sounds like Jesus had some UFO experiences, starting at birth. And I'd have to imagine he'd be able to relate in a lot of ways to the interesting lives that we lead. That said, I want to quickly point out that he was not the only special person on this world, and I do not believe Jesus Christ is or ever claimed to be the only savior of the world, because I don't know who would put that on their back. I think that's a little bit too much for one person to handle, and I think that was proven correct, unfortunately, with his demise. But I think the religion was based off of him, because humans have this weird deal where people who die publicly, young and violently, like Christ did. Who's the two most famous presidents of the United States other than George Washington? Abraham Lincoln and JFK. Well, perhaps that's the same thing happening here. Just a thought. Just a thought. So I'm going to move past Kurt with that, but we all knew Kurt was a special individual. And assuming that bloodline exists, which I firmly do, I think the Da Vinci Code makes a very good case for that. I really do, logically. I think that's very tough to ignore. If they need the bloodline to stick around, well, that's, I would say, probably a fair lie to tell to help protect that bloodline. I think that would be important, since really that's the only way someone can come again, is through their ancestors. Because we are all literally composed of our ancestors before us. I mean, they say it comes floating out of the clouds, but look at the hybrid program again. Floating out of the clouds, we're all taken up, and then we come out, and I've met a couple two-borns who tend to be about 10 to 20 years older than I am. But most of them are put in the womb up in the clouds as we see it in outer space, so that's still a point of confusion to me, and I certainly do not claim to be an expert on the Christian religion. That said, I do want to point out that Jesus Christ never got an opportunity to put his stamp of approval on it. And my personal opinion is, driving around town, look at some of the multi-million-dollar Christian churches I see, I think he'd be a little pissed about that. I would hope so. So think about that next time you guys go inside. You know what's wrong with doing it outdoors, or a cheap building, and using that money for something less. I'm just going to stop there. This is supposed to be about something else, and I've sort of gone off track a little bit, but it relates. Real briefly, just one quote. Axl Rose said, quote, "I feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door." Heaven is outer space, guys. It's the same thing. Just look up. You're looking at heaven and outer space. That's what this heaven is that we all go to when we die, apparently, if we're good. Outer space. There's a lot of dynamics past that, and I understand some of them, but certainly not all of them. But I'm going to leave it at that. The Red Hot Chili Peppers, I think, are a great band, and I think these guys are certainly passing on a message.